Admiral Renata Blackwood stood at attention before the Galactic Council's massive crystalline chamber, her weathered face betraying no emotion as hundreds of alien representatives whispered among themselves. Behind her, through the chamber's transparent walls, loomed the massive silhouette that had thrown the galaxy's political establishment into chaos, the UES Prometheus. "Honorable representatives," she began, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the air, "humanity presents to you our greatest achievement in spacefaring technology." A hologram materialized above the chamber's center, showing the dreadnought in all its glory. At 15 kilometers long, the Prometheus dwarfed even the largest council vessels. Its obsidian hull seemed to drink in the light of the nearby star, while its elegant lines belied its tremendous power. First Speaker Venix, their serpentine form coiled tightly in obvious agitation, raised their head. This abomination exceeds all established guidelines for military vessel construction. The Council cannot allow. The Council, Blackwood interrupted smoothly, has no jurisdiction over human military development. We signed no treaties limiting our ship sizes, and we violated no laws. In the gallery, Ambassador Kralthax of the Thoraxian Empire rose to his full height, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. Laws? You humans speak of laws while building a weapon that could destroy entire systems. We've seen how quickly your species advances. Barely 2 centuries since achieving faster-than-light travel, and already you threaten the stability of the galaxy. Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. Threaten? No, Ambassador. We secure it. The Prometheus is a peacekeeping vessel. Peacekeeping. The word echoed from a dozen throats in various languages. Indeed. Blackwood gestured, and the hologram shifted to show the ship's medical bays, research laboratories, and humanitarian response facilities. The Prometheus carries enough supplies to support relief efforts for an entire planet. Its medical facilities rival those of your finest hospitals. Yes, it has defensive capabilities. We would be fools to build otherwise. But its primary mission is to protect and serve. In the back of the chamber, Director Jiro Tanaka of the Human Diplomatic Corps watched the proceedings with growing concern. His aide, Lieutenant Priya Patel, leaned close. "They're not buying it, sir." "No," he murmured, "they're not. And our friends in intelligence suggest several council members are already plotting something drastic." On the chamber floor, the debate grew heated. Second Speaker Melron, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in agitation, demanded immediate sanctions against Earth. Others called for military intervention. A few voices urged caution and cooperation, but they were quickly drowned out. Through it all, Admiral Blackwood stood firm. She knew what none of them did. The Prometheus wasn't just a show of force. It was humanity's insurance policy against the growing darkness at the galaxy's edge, a threat the Council refused to acknowledge. Deep within the Prometheus itself, Chief Engineer Dante Romano worked feverishly to maintain the ship's sophisticated quantum matrices. The new technology they'd developed was still experimental, and keeping it stable during the demonstration was crucial. His hands flew over holographic controls as his team monitored countless systems. "Power fluctuation in Sector 7, called out Lieutenant Wei. "Compensating." "Hold it steady," Romano ordered. "We can't afford even a minor incident today." He wiped sweat from his brow, acutely aware that the fate of human-alien relations might hinge on their performance. Back in the council chamber, First Speaker Venix finally called for order. "We will recess to consider Earth's presentation. Admiral Blackwood, you will remain available for questioning." As the chamber began to empty, Ambassador Kralithax approached Blackwood privately. His crystalline features softened slightly. "You realize, Admiral, that many will see this as an act of aggression, no matter your stated intentions. And you, Ambassador, what do you see?" Kralithax studied her for a long moment. "I see a species that has learned to fear the dark. One must wonder what you found out there among the stars to drive you to build such a vessel." Blackwood met his gaze steadily. "Sometimes, Ambassador, the best way to preserve peace is to be prepared for war." As the council members filed out, Director Tanaka received an urgent message. His face paled as he read it. "Sir," Patel whispered, "what is it?" "Our worst fears confirmed," he replied quietly. "Multiple council species are already mobilizing their fleets. They're not waiting for a formal decision." He looked up at the massive form of the Prometheus, visible through the chamber walls. Heaven help us if they discover what it's really designed to fight. In her private quarters that evening, Admiral Blackwood reviewed the day's events with her senior staff. The tension headache building behind her eyes spoke volumes about how the presentation had been received. Yet she knew they had no choice. Humanity had seen what was coming, and they would not face it unprepared. "They'll try to stop us," Commander Jackson stated flatly. "The question is how." "Let them try," Blackwood replied, her voice hard as steel. "The Prometheus isn't just a ship. It's humanity's declaration to the galaxy. We will not be ignored, we will not be dismissed, and we will not back down." As if in response to her words, the mighty dreadnought's quantum core pulsed softly, its power thrumming through the vessel like a heartbeat. The future of humanity, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now rested in their hands. In the dimly lit corridors of the Galactic Council's secure wing, Ambassador Kralithax moved silently despite his crystalline form. He was headed to a meeting that officially didn't exist, with beings who would deny ever having attended. The fate of the Prometheus, and perhaps humanity itself, hung in the balance. The chamber he entered held 5 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. High Admiral Zixtal of the Meridian Fleet, her tentacles writhing with barely contained rage. War Minister Dorn of the Vega Collective, his metallic scales gleaming. And others, equally dangerous, equally determined. "The humans must be stopped," Zixtal declared without preamble. "That ship is an abomination." Kralithax settled into his position at the table. "Perhaps. But have you considered why they built it? Ambition, arrogance, the usual human failings," Dorn growled. "No." Kralithax projected a hologram he'd obtained at great risk. "Look at the Prometheus's sensor arrays, its quantum shielding configuration. This ship wasn't built for war against us. It's designed to fight something else." Meanwhile, aboard the Prometheus, Chief Engineer Romano was giving a tour to an unexpected visitor. Council Science Liaison Nira Voss moved with an almost hypnotic grace, her bioluminescent patterns shifting with genuine curiosity as she examined each system. "The quantum matrices are remarkable," she said, her translator rendering her musical language into standard English, "unlike anything in council records." Romano found himself watching her patterns more than was strictly professional. "We had to develop new technologies. Conventional systems couldn't handle the power requirements." "Requirements for what?" Her patterns pulsed with interest. Surely not just propulsion and weapons. Before Romano could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Unauthorized access detected in primary computer core," the AI announced. "Security protocols engaged." Romano's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. The core is triple locked." He turned to Nira, suspicion flaring. But she was already moving. "Your security team will be chasing phantoms," she said urgently. "This is a distraction. The real attack will be." An explosion rocked the ship. In her command center, Admiral Blackwood received the reports with growing fury. 3 sabotage attempts in different sections. A computer virus attacking their navigation systems. And worst of all, evidence that some of it came from inside the Council itself. "Ma'am," Commander Jackson reported, "engineering teams have contained the explosions. Minimal damage, but the virus is exactly what we expected." Blackwood finished. "Activate Countermeasure Protocol Omega." Throughout the ship, hidden systems came online. The virus found itself trapped, isolated, and systematically destroyed by defenses even the Council's best hackers hadn't known existed. Director Tanaka burst into the command center. "Admiral, we have confirmation. The attack was orchestrated by a faction within the Council, but not all members were aware. We have allies speaking up in our defense, including, surprisingly, Ambassador Kralthax." In the Council's secure wing, the secret meeting had devolved into chaos as news of the failed attack reached them. Kralthax stood, his crystalline form radiating disapproval. "You fools. You've given them exactly what they needed, justification. Now nothing will stop them from activating that ship's full capabilities." "The attack failed," Sixtol raged. "How?" "Our best operatives." "Failed because the humans were ready," Kralthax cut in. "They knew someone would try. The question none of you are asking is why they let it happen." Back aboard the Prometheus, Romano found Nera in a secure observation room, her patterns swirling with complex emotions. "You tried to warn us," he said softly. "I knew what some Council members planned. I couldn't stop it, but I could help minimize the damage." She turned to him, her patterns forming shapes he was beginning to recognize as concern. "Your ship. It's not what they think, is it?" Romano hesitated, then made a decision. "Come with me. There's something you need to see." He led her to a heavily secured section of the ship. Inside, holographic displays showed something that made her patterns freeze in shock. "The dark space between galaxies," she whispered. "The void we're forbidden to study. You found something out there, haven't you? Something that makes our conflicts seem meaningless," Romano confirmed. "Something coming this way." Admiral Blackwood stood before her crew, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive ship. "Today's attack was expected, planned for, and defeated. To those who would try to stop us, know this. The Prometheus wasn't built to conquer. It was built to save. And whether the Council accepts it or not, that's exactly what we're going to do." As her words echoed through the ship, Nera studied the data with growing horror, her patterns shifting to colors Romano had never seen before. "How long?" she asked. "Without the Prometheus, the galaxy would have less than a decade. With it," he met her gaze, "we might have a fighting chance." In the Council chambers, debates raged about retaliation, about sanctions, about war. But in a quiet corner, Ambassador Kralthax began making calls to those who would listen, because he'd seen enough to know that humanity's greatest sin wasn't building the Prometheus. It was being right about why they needed it. The Prometheus's quantum core hummed with barely contained power as Admiral Blackwood reviewed the sensor data. 12 Council warships had just emerged from hyperspace, weapons charged. Not an official Council fleet. This was a rogue operation meant to test humanity's resolve. "Battle stations," she ordered calmly, "but do not fire first." Chief Engineer Romano and Nera worked frantically in engineering, preparing systems that had never been tested in actual combat. If they get the auxiliary power couplings, Naira's patterns flashed with concern. The quantum cascade cooled. "They won't," Romano assured her, even as the ship shuddered under the first barrage. The attacking vessels had opened fire without warning or declaration. The Prometheus's shields held, absorbing energy that would have vaporized smaller ships. Blackwood watched the tactical display with cold calculation. Show them why this ship was built. Defensive pattern delta. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations. The massive dreadnought moved with impossible grace, its advanced quantum drives allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Enemy fire found only empty space where the ship had been microseconds before. "They're targeting our sensor arrays," Commander Jackson reported. "They know about the threat in dark space. Someone leaked the intelligence." "Then let's show them why we need those sensors," Blackwood replied. "Activate the Argus protocol." Throughout the ship, hidden systems powered up. The sensor arrays reconfigured, and suddenly the battlefield expanded beyond normal spacetime. The attacking ship's quantum signatures became visible, revealing their planned attack vectors seconds before execution. In the Council's emergency session, Ambassador Kralthax presented evidence of the unauthorized attack. "These rogue elements act against our laws, driven by fear rather than wisdom." His crystalline form vibrated with controlled anger. "And while we debate, they may destroy our only defense against what comes from the void." First Speaker Venix wavered. "What evidence do you have of this supposed threat?" Naira stepped forward, her patterns forming complex equations. "I've seen the data myself. The humans speak truth. The void between galaxies harbors something ancient, something hungry." Aboard the Prometheus, Romano watched in awe as the ship's true capabilities were finally unleashed. Not just a weapon, but a shield for all sentient life. The quantum matrices he'd helped design bent space itself, creating defensive corridors that channeled enemy fire away from vital systems. "Their formation is breaking," Jackson announced. 3 ships disabled, no casualties." Blackwood nodded grimly. "As intended, we're not here to kill them. Prepare the demonstration." The Prometheus's main quantum array aligned with a nearby star. Energy began to build, not for destruction, but for something else entirely. The rogue fleet's commanders watched in confusion as their sensors registered unprecedented power readings. "Now they'll understand," Nair whispered, her patterns matching the quantum fluctuations surrounding them. "Show them what humanity has really built." A beam of pure quantum energy lanced out from the Prometheus, not toward the enemy ships, but into the seemingly empty space behind them. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to tear open, revealing what lay hidden behind normal spacetime. The rogue commanders saw it first, massive dark shapes moving between the galaxies. Ancient. Hungry, real. Full record of the quantum aperture, Jackson confirmed. Transmitting to all Council frequencies. In the Council chamber, the evidence could no longer be denied. The shapes in the void matched ancient warnings found in the ruins of dead civilizations across the galaxy. Humanity hadn't built a weapon of war. They built an early warning system, a fortress, a shield for all life in the galaxy. Ambassador Kralthax's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Now you understand. The humans saw what we refused to see. They built what we feared to build. And they did it knowing we might destroy them for it." Aboard the damaged but victorious Prometheus, Romano found Naira in the observation deck, her patterns forming shapes he now recognized as hope. "Your people will help us now." "No," she replied, turning to him. "We will help each other, as it always should have been." Admiral Blackwood sent a final message to the retreating rogue fleet. Return to your worlds. Tell them what you've seen. The real war hasn't even begun. The Prometheus hung in space, its quantum cores pulsing like a heartbeat. Humanity got past its trial by fire, but the true test, the darkness between the stars, still awaited. And now, at least, they wouldn't face it alone. The Prometheus's war room buzzed with activity as representatives from 20 council species reviewed battle plans. 1 month had passed since the rogue fleet's attack, and the galaxy was mobilizing for a threat greater than their petty rivalries. Admiral Blackwood studied the quantum aperture readings with High Admiral Zixtal, former enemy now turned desperate ally. The void entities are accelerating, Blackwood noted. We have months, not years. In engineering, Romano and Nera had barely slept, working to retrofit council ships with quantum detection systems. Their fingers brushed as they both reached for the same tool, her patterns flickering with emotions that transcended species. The quantum matrices are stable, she reported, professional despite her swirling colors, but linking them across multiple ships of different designs. We'll find a way, Romano assured her. We have to. The ship's AA interrupted. Priority alert. Quantum disturbance detected in the Arcturus sector. Pattern matches void entity signatures. First speaker Venix, now permanently stationed aboard the Prometheus, coiled in alarm. That's a major population center. Billions of lives. All ships, battle stations, Blackwood commanded. This is not a drill. The Prometheus led a flotilla of modified council vessels through hyperspace. On the bridge, Romano watched Nera's patterns shift to colors he'd never seen before. Fear, determination, and something deeper. The quantum aperture is forming, Commander Jackson reported. Massive. Bigger than anything we've recorded. They dropped out of hyperspace to face humanity's nightmares made real. A tear in space-time revealed creatures of impossible geometry, their very presence warping reality. 3 council worlds had already gone dark. Quantum shields at maximum, Romano called from engineering. But the strain, fleet in defensive formation, Zixtal announced, her tentacles writhing with battle fury. All ships reporting ready. Blackwood stood, her voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. This is what the Prometheus was built for. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to defend. All lives, all species, all hope. She turned to Venix, first speaker. The Serpentine leader raised their head. The council stands with humanity. All ships engage. The battle that followed would be remembered as long as sentient life existed in the galaxy. The Prometheus's quantum weapons tore holes in reality itself, forcing the void entities back. Council ships, guided by the Dreadnought's advanced sensors, struck with perfect coordination. But the enemy was ancient, powerful, and numberless. For every entity forced back into the void, 2 more emerged. The quantum shields began to fail. Direct hit to Section 7. Jackson shouted. Hull breach contained but quantum stability dropping. In engineering, Romano and Nera worked frantically to maintain the quantum matrices. A power surge threw them both across the room. Romano helped her up, and her patterns formed a shape he'd never seen, one that needed no translation. Dante, she said softly, using his first name for the first time. If we don't survive, we'll survive, he promised. Together. On the bridge, Blackwood received the damage reports with growing dread. The combined fleet was holding, but barely. Then Venix saw something in the sensor data. The entities, they hissed. They're not random. There's a pattern to their quantum signatures. Almost like a language. Naira finished, her patterns suddenly urgent on the comm. They're not just attacking, they're trying to communicate. Blackwood's eyes widened. All ships, hold position. Naira Romano, can you reconfigure the quantum arrays? Not to attack, but to transmit. What followed was either humanity's greatest gamble or its finest hour. As void entities surrounded the fleet, the Prometheus's quantum cores pulsed with a new pattern. Not warfare, but conversation. First contact with beings so alien they existed outside normal space-time. The response, when it came, defied conventional physics. But in the quantum language they'd discovered, a message formed. At last, you are ready. The void entities withdrew, leaving behind not destruction, but an invitation. The galaxy's species had faced extinction together and emerged united. Now they were offered something greater, membership in a community that spanned not just galaxies, but dimensions. In the aftermath, Romano found Nera in their favorite observation deck. Her patterns formed complex equations of quantum mechanics and love. What happens now? She asked. He took her crystalline hand in his. We explore, together, all of us. The Prometheus had been built to save humanity. Instead, it had helped save all life, and opened the door to something far greater than survival. 1 year after first contact, the Prometheus led a joint fleet into the quantum void. The massive dreadnought, once feared by the Council, now carried representatives from every spacefaring species toward their destiny. Admiral Blackwood Romano and Nera stood on the bridge as reality itself parted before them. The void entities had taught them to navigate the spaces between dimensions, opening doors humanity had never dreamed possible. Final quantum calibrations complete, Romano reported, his hand intertwined with Nara's crystalline fingers. Her patterns danced with excitement and nervous anticipation. First Speaker Venix and High Admiral Zixtal monitored the sensor feeds as the fleet approached a massive structure that defied conventional physics, the Nexus, where species from 1,000 dimensions gathered to share knowledge. To think we almost destroyed ourselves fighting each other, Zixtal mused, her tentacles moving thoughtfully. When all alone, this awaited us. The Prometheus's quantum cores harmonized with the Nexus's energy signature. As they docked, delegations from across dimensional space welcomed them. Beings of pure energy, crystalline entities that made Naira's people seem simple, and forms of life beyond description. But the celebration was cut short by urgent news from the quantum sensors. A dimensional rift was forming, larger than any previously recorded. Something was coming, something that had the void entities themselves in retreat. This is what they were preparing us for, Blackwood realized. Why they pushed us to evolve, to unite. The real test begins now. The Nexus's ancient defenses, activated as a force beyond comprehension, emerged from the rift. The combined fleet, led by the Prometheus, moved into formation. This time, they faced not just void entities, but beings that threatened the very fabric of multiple realities. Romano and Naira's quantum modifications would be tested beyond their limits. Their love, bridging the gap between species, had helped create technology that now protected not just one galaxy, but countless dimensions. All ships, all realities, all hope, Blackwood's voice carried across dimensional barriers. We stand together. The Prometheus's quantum cores pulsed with power drawn from 1,000 dimensions. The ship that had started as humanity's insurance policy had become something greater, a symbol of unity, of defiance against the darkness, of hope. As the battle for reality itself began, Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. They had come so far from that first tense meeting in the council chamber. Humanity had built the Prometheus to protect itself, but in doing so, they had protected everything. The massive dreadnought moved forward, leading not just a fleet, but a unified multidimensional civilization. The quantum void blazed with energy as the greatest battle in the history of all realities began. The future was uncertain, but they would face it together. Human and alien, physical and energy being, all united in defense of life itself. The Prometheus lit the way forward, its quantum heart beating in rhythm with the pulse of existence itself. As reality trembled around them, Romano looked at Nira, her patterns forming the now familiar shape of love. "Ready?" he asked. Her response came in both quantum equations and emotion, always. Admiral Blackwood gave the order that would echo across dimensions. For all realities, engage. The Prometheus surged forward, no longer just a ship, but a beacon of hope for all existence. The story that began with fear and suspicion had transformed into something greater, a testament to the power of unity, love, and defiance in the face of darkness. The real battle was just beginning, but thanks to one ship, built in defiance of convention, they would fight it together.